Hello. So I've been reading a lot of kind of hefty and intense books lately. So this week we're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it chill. We're going to keep it sequels. So I have Dresden book 5 and Discworld book, oh my goodness, I don't know, 8 something. These are what I'm going to read this week, as well as more updates on Dragon Ball Z. So it is a vlog of sequels. Sorry if that's a fuss. It'll all be spoiler free, but you know, it is going to be a vlog of sequels. I've gotten a good chunk into Death Masks and I'm enjoying it so much. This could potentially be my new favorite Dresden book so far. So I can't tell you a ton about the plot. I can't give you a lot of specifics about the plot because it is such a sequel. The main conflicts of the story are all because of previous events. Like we have this big duel that's coming up that's putting Harry's life at risk, and the reason the duel is happening is because of the events of previous books. It's this war that's going on between people because of reasons, but we also have more characters being introduced that are in alliance with vampires or in alliance with other creatures that we've encountered in previous books. We have Harry's life on the line once again, but this time in a really specific way, and characters trying to essentially convince him to give up his very self in order to save his life. We also have holy objects that are in play and other objects that will greatly affect Harry if he chooses to accept them. There's a lot going on in this. Plus, his ex-girlfriend is back, and she too is paying the consequences of previous books. So her role in this book makes tensions really high, and she has her own stuff that she's dealing with, and Harry once again is trying to help her because that's who Harry is. But it's complicated. It's really, really complicated because they're in this urban fantasy world where people get tangled in really, really messy stuff. So again, I can't say much about the plot because the plot is dependent on the books previous. What I can tell you about is why I'm loving this book so much, and it's because of the characters. The characters are so human, and their human scenes are so well done. Something as simple as Harry, who has conflict with his best friend's wife because his best friend is constantly getting into some really dangerous situations because of Harry. And just being in her kitchen and chopping vegetables and talking through the issues that they're having. Situations like Michael, my favorite character, Harry's best friend, people that he's in alliance with. Michael is a person of faith. His faith really matters to him. Harry is a person who believes in something, but doesn't have a good relationship with this something. Doesn't have good ideals about the way the universe works and how it all works together. We have people who are agnostic. We have people who have strong alignment with Michael and with his personal beliefs, but have different perspectives on it. We have people who kind of have stumbled into things. We have people from a lot of different perspectives that are able to just openly talk about what they believe and why, and work together despite where they land. And I think that this is something that these books are so strong in handling different people's views and perspectives and working together regardless of those different perspectives. There's just so much respect handled with all of this and with where the characters land in all of it. Then we also have characters asking Harry really important questions like, why do you do this? Why are you a wizard detective? Why are you aligning yourself with humans, but also putting yourself in a position where you're on the outside, where you're ostracized, where you're looked down on? These people don't accept you, and yet you're risking your life for them over and over again. And he has to be confronted with this question: why am I doing this? Why am I aligning myself with this? He has to ask himself this question multiple times throughout the book so far, where characters where he doesn't know the answer, and then you have characters who are trying to manipulate the answer and trying to manipulate him and force him into thinking that he's doing it for bad reasons, and that he is the worst. Like the ideas, the thoughts that creep into your mind, your desire for power, your inclination to maybe manipulate or to elevate yourself, like that's truly who you are. That's the essence of you. Other people don't go through that. It's someone trying to manipulate him into believing that the worst innermost pieces of his mind are the essence of who he actually is. And it's him being tempted, but realizing I have weaknesses and I am inclined to certain ideals. And if I give into this, if I take this object, then I will be overcome by it and I won't be able to choose to be who I want to be anymore. And so risking his life and accepting whatever his fate is going to be because he's not willing to harm others by being potentially influenced to be the worst version of himself. Just like, oh, it's so good. All these human sides of this story are what make this story so good. The world building is really good. The different creatures we have are really interesting. The different conflicts that we come across, especially as we're kind of getting past the formulaic detective story of, oh, there was a crime, a supernatural crime. Hire the detective. Okay, go solve the crime. And also some human things are happening too. It's like, it's really pushing itself to be more than what it initially looked like it was being, what this series initially looked like it was all it was going to do. And now it's expanded to so much more, but the most that it's done, the best that it's done is to be this very human story in so many different ways. And I feel like I can answer Harry's questions, the questions that are being brought up to Harry about like, why do you do what you do? Like, I feel like I know who you are, Harry, and I can answer the question for you. But at the end of the day, he has to be the one that answers it, because he has to be the one to figure out who he wants to be in life and why he's choosing this path in life. But it's very much the human side of things that is really drawing me into loving Harry and to loving these side characters and to loving what they're going through and the different perspectives that we get throughout this series. It's just I really like it. There's always stuff that bothers me in every book. There's always at least one scene that I'm going to look at with some side eyes. But then there's the rest of the book. And this has potential to be my favorite book so far in the series, but I'll let you know what I think when I get to the end of it. I have already started Wyrd Sisters as well, but I'll talk to you about that in the next clip. Welcome to the vlog. Death masks. Done. I don't know if I like this better than book 3 or not. I would say that they're near at the same level. Probably this a little bit more though. We have a new villain introduced that has totally different stakes and that I really, really like. A villain that I hope is going to continue on through the series. We have new characters introduced that I'm very attached to. We have emotional punches with some of these characters that are just so rude. so rude. The series always has a big emphasis on friendship and on loyalty, on the sacrifices that we make for each other. This book in particular had a lot of emphasis on personal responsibility and the choices that we make to do our best in every possible circumstance, even when it seems like the worst circumstances for the individual, both with Harry and with, some of the side characters as well. Really, really great scenes in this book. Some not so great scenes, but mostly great scenes in this book. I think for me, Dresden is still just really great buffer books. I think I read a lot of big and emotionally intense, heavy books. So I dropped everything, as you saw, and I jerked my arms to try to catch it and unplugged the microphone, and now the rest of that footage is unusable because there's no audio. So what I was done talking about Dresden. What I was saying is that I read a lot of big books, I read a lot of heavy books, and because of that, every now and then I just feel like I need a break. And there have been several series that I've started that I've said, oh, this is a great buffer book series. This is a great series of small books that are a little bit lighter and more fun that I'll read in between some of my heavier reads. And I never follow through with that. I never actually finish buffer series because I'm just not drawn to that sort of thing. Dresden has been the perfect actual buffer book for me because it's that perfect balance of really intriguing world, really fantastic character moments, as well as a fun time, makes me laugh, but also the emotional punches and the stakes are there as well to keep me coming back. So it's my kind of buffer book. It's like the right kind of buffer book. It still hasn't taken me over to the point that I feel like, oh, I gotta pause everything else and I need to read more Dresden. Still, the pace of one book per month is working great for me. So I don't know if the mic cut out before I ranked them, so I'll rank them for you. It's so I just finished book 5. So it goes book 5, then 3, then 1, then 4, then 2. That's how I'd rank the Dresden books so far in order of my personal enjoyment, and I'm looking forward to book 6. Now, I also gave you my opening thoughts for Wyrd Sisters in that clip, but that's gone now and I've finished the book, so I guess you just get final thoughts from me. Sorry. Which actually works out okay because I feel unqualified to talk about this one, sadly. So what I didn't know is that this is a Shakespearean book. I didn't realize that what Pratchett was doing was he was taking Shakespearean plays, I think primarily Hamlet, and doing his standard satirical play on words, clever use of writing, which Shakespeare did as well, and he's taking that and applying it to Shakespeare. So he's taking the tropes and conventions and ideas. Locke. Hey. Hold on. Locke is still mad at Cyrus for existing. They do fine when I'm not outside, but when I come outside, Locke gets really mad because Cyrus wants all the pets and Locke doesn't want him anywhere near me. So I have to put Locke inside if I'm outside. And Cyrus is going to get fixed soon. I've made an appointment for it. So eventually we're going to bring him in the house, and then that's going to be fun. We're going to have to keep them apart for a little bit until Locke can be nice to his brother. Anyway, what was I saying? So I've never experienced Shakespeare before. You can judge me. I know you will. It's fine. I guess I've earned it. But I've never read a Shakespearean play. I've never seen a Shakespearean play. I've never encountered Shakespeare outside of just osmosis. And it's not because I haven't tried to. It's not because I've avoided it. It's just never presented itself to me. I'm not a theater kid, and I've been to very few plays. I've not participated in any personally, and it was never a part of my curriculum to read. So I don't know anything about Shakespeare. So I feel really, really ill-equipped to talk about the book. Now, I can talk about it from the perspective of someone who knows nothing and still had a good time, because I still had a really good time with this book. So the concept is probably going to be real familiar to you. It wasn't to me. But this king is killed, he's assassinated, and his ghost lives on and is an active part of the story. And the heir to the throne is a baby, and he's whisked away. And in the meantime, this duke and his wife are taking over, and they're not great leaders. Not that the king was an amazing leader, but at least when he burned people's houses down, he usually paid to have them put back up. So it was like, you know, he wasn't maybe always for the people, but he was at least thoughtful, and the duke and his wife are not. So we have Granny Weatherwax, who's from Equal Rights, and I loved her in Equal Rights. We now see her with her coven, which is her and 2 other witches that she's not the leader of, but she's about as much of a leader as a non-leader can be. We also get to, of course, encounter Death because, you know, the king died, and we get that interaction as well, and death interactions are always fun. But then you also have a fool that plays an active role who hates being a fool, but it's what he does, and he falls for one of the witches, and there's a big factor in there. But then there's also play within a play in this book where the witches go and see a play, and one of the witches, my favorite witch, Nanny Og, she doesn't get it. Nanny Og has many scenes that could be described as she doesn't get it. And I love her for that. But she doesn't get it, and so this character in the play dies, and then she stands up and she's like, he's the murderer, he did it. And it's this thing. But then there's more theater happening within the book, and it's just, you know, it's Discworld, it's Pratchett, it's chaos, but somehow it manages to be even just a little bit more chaotic. But also, even though this book is loaded with goodness, great character stuff, really, really rich characters, fun plotting, just a really fast, fun time. These books always just take me a couple of days to read and are always just a delight. I describe each book as it was a delight, because that's how I feel about these books. They give you something to think about, they give you something to discuss, but at the end of the day, it's just a delight to read them. So you have great lines like this one. There are thousands of good reasons why magic doesn't rule the world. They're called witches and wizards. There were differences in style, of course. Wizards assassinated each other in drafty corridors. Witches just cut one another dead on the street. They were all as self-centered as a spinning top. Even when they help other people, she thought, they're secretly doing it for themselves. Honestly, they're just like big children. Except for me, she thought smugly. Just a delight. But then there's also lines that happen that are hilarious, that make me laugh, but I also know that I'm missing half the joke. Like there was one point where the Duke requested a handkerchief, and the fool gave him his, and the Duke wiped his brow with it, and then held it out and looked at it, and he was like, "Is this a knife I see? Is this a knife I'm holding?" And the fool goes, "Nope, that's a handkerchief. You can tell because it's not sharp and pointy." And that's just a funny line, and it's just an inherently Discworld kind of nonsense, but at the same time I can tell that there's a better joke hidden in there that I would get if I had done the required reading beforehand or watched the required play beforehand. So I don't know, I'm still kind of on the fence on if I'm gonna do a spoiler review for this one. I have for every Discworld book I've read so far, but I honestly just feel unqualified for this because I can talk about it from the perspective of a reader who enjoyed a book, but I can't actually dig into what makes this book great because I don't have the context around it. So that kind of sucks. I don't like that. But what I can say is that it was a lot of fun. I loved getting to know, I loved getting more time with Granny Weatherwax. I loved getting to know Nanny Og. I loved getting to know all the new characters, to include a cat that we actually got a perspective from. And Discworld plots are always a fast-paced, fun time with some solid self-reflection. So, I mean, I had a great time. I'm reading these once a month, and I'm continuing to enjoy them. I just wish I was in on the full conversation on this one. Also, people have been asking me what my plan is for Discworld because I posted a TBR video at the end of August, and I said that I was going to pause my chronological reading of Discworld in December and read Hogfather, but many people warned me that I was not ready for Hogfather. There were a few books that I needed to read beforehand in order to actually get out of it what I need to get out of it, and I had already determined that I was going to change plans because of that. But after reading Wyrd Sisters and not having full context for Wyrd Sisters, even though I'm reading chronologically, that just bothers me. I stopped reading arc by arc and started reading chronologically because I wanted full context for the books, and it bothered me not getting the full context for all the world building. And now here I am reading chronologically and I don't have full context, and it's not that big of a deal because I still, like, this is still a 4-star book. I still had a great time reading it, but it bothers me to not be in on the full conversation. So I'm definitely not doing that to myself with Hogfather. So I'm not going to do that. And in fact, I'm going to read Pyramids next month because that's the next book to read with me reading chronologically. But then I'm going to pause and not read any Discworld in December since I'm rereading all of Hitchhikers in December. I don't want to burn myself out on too much of a similar style. So I'm going to pause Discworld in December, do Hitchhikers, and then in January continue with Discworld. Let me know if you want a spoiler review for Wyrd Sisters or if we should just move on and pick it back up at Pyramids. I really enjoyed Wyrd Sisters, but at the end of the day, I don't feel like I can give a full discussion on it because I don't have the full context. So you let me know how you feel about that. And finally, let's talk about Dragon Ball. So the intensity just never stops going up with this series. Goku is here, which he, again, what I'm going to say is going to be spoiler free, but there will be panels on the screen to give context. So if you want to be spoiler free, just listen to me. If you want to see the panels, which will spoil things, then you can continue to watch the video along with hearing my voice. But my voice is spoiler free. Anyway, Goku is here, and oh my goodness, have things ramped up even more. So we've been on this quest to regain the Dragon Balls just in this new context, and we've had to go through so much to get to this point, but we're finally to the point that's been expected, that we've been getting to. And I love the this version of this event because just like the series, with everything with the series, everything keeps amping up where, you know, you have these expectations and then the ceiling breaks, right? So the same is true for the way the Dragon Balls are used. And there's a character who's on screen who when I met him, I barely paid him any attention because I was like, yay, another villain. But I have grown so attached to him because he's introduced some plot twists to us as far as Goku's history and his home what happened in the past that he doesn't remember or have any knowledge of, but that really adds like some gravity to what's going on here. He also introduces some world building elements. I think it's fine for me to say it, the concept of the Super Saiyan, which this character cares deeply about, and Goku, true to his nature, doesn't. But I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I'm really excited to see when we get to this point what that's gonna look like, how that's gonna change things. As these characters continue to enter battles and get beat up and get taken down and then have to rise back up, they are learning a lot and increasing in strength and increasing in ability, which just makes the action sequences also amp up so much. So the current opposition that we're facing also has multiple forms. And so he's leveling up in his own way while these characters are trying to get strong enough to be able to defeat him. And even as a team, they just cannot match his strength. But I feel the tension, and I think it's because, again, I don't typically a battle shonen, I don't tend to like really long fight scenes or manga that are this action heavy. I usually want more plot, less action, but the action in Dragon Ball is just written so well. It's drawn so impeccably where I feel the pressure of it. I feel the intensity of it. I've said this many times before, but the action is so clean. I can clearly see everything that's happening and follow it really easily. And I don't know, it's just fun. Like, it's not the deepest series I've ever read, but it being coupled with a lot of absurdity, plus how well the action is drawn, I'm just I'm just vibing with it. I'm into it. So I just lost a character that I really, really care about. So I've actually, funny enough, my favorite character in the series I lost recently, and I was devastated. And now this character that just kind of snuck up on me that I didn't think much of, and then very slowly and against my will, I became very attached to him, and I didn't even notice until we were in the middle of this action sequence that I'm still in the middle of. I still haven't, I forgot to tell you what volume I'm on. I just finished volume 10, and we're still right in the thick of it. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. I don't know how we're going to come out of this. So I'm just really excited to keep reading, because while this particular battle has been going on for what feels like eons, I'm still into it. I still want to see what's going to happen next. Also, little things like just checking in on Gohan's mom just randomly in the middle of the battle, of her just sitting at the table thinking, man, I really hope Gohan's keeping up with his homework. Goku better be making sure that he's keeping up with his homework. Like, that's so goofy to do right in the middle of the battle, and that makes me more endeared to the story because of nonsense like that just gets inserted. Anyway, I'm having a really good time. It's been a lot of action since our last check-in, and what's to come is a lot more action, so that's kind of all I have to say about it. But yeah, I don't know, I'm having a really good time. So that's everything that I read this week. I read Discworld I read Dresden Book 5, Discworld Book 6, and Dragon Ball Z Volume 10. It was a fun week. It was a week full of absurdity, goofiness, and fun. I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed what you were reading. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday on this channel, Mondays and Fridays on the other channel, which is always linked in the description. I'll see you again soon. Bye.